Leriandre Silva, From Anonymity to the World.
Leriandre Feijão da Silva, stage name Leriandre Silva, was born on August 30th, 1977, in Engenheiro Paulo de Frontin, a city located 100 kilometers from the capital of Rio de Janeiro. At 5 years of age, Leriandre got a toy flute as a gift and spent hours practicing his instrument to be able to play some songs at home. That's when a great passion for music was born in his heart. As if that wasn't enough to play at home, he would take his flute to school. At the end of each class, his teacher would give young Leriandre an opportunity to show his musical talent.
We didn't have teachers that specialized in music, but he showed his musical talent with his little bamboo flute in the classroom.
One day I thought, I'm going to give the students an opportunity to show what they perhaps want to be when they grow up. So I called him and said, at the end of each of my lectures, you'll make a presentation for your class.
This without any technical knowledge of the instrument. But Leriandre was applauded by his classmates at his school, Colégio Mauricio Antonio.
At first we thought, I wonder if this guy has some kind of problem, but we came to the conclusion that he really had a great talent.
He always stood out. He was someone who was looking for something different.
In fact, at age 11, he began to study and dedicate himself to music. He studied acoustic guitar with a private teacher and played electric guitar at his church, Assembly of God. His career in music was just beginning, but God's plans were far beyond the guitar. He was given an opportunity to learn the instrument of his dreams. As an initiative by the mayor of his city, a maestro was hired to start a musical band and to teach young people to play an instrument.
We started music together in 1990 with the late maestro Juca Semedo. We played many classics, brevo, marches, and sambas together. And he always stood out in class, always a good student.
Leriandre was one of those who studied there for 3 years, learning to play various musical styles: concerts, boleros, waltzes, samba, frevo, classical music, and military marches. And Leriandre discovered a new passion in life: the saxophone. But in 1994, he took a course to become a general mechanic in a technical school, Senai. He studied there for 2 years, started working in the field, but that was not what he wanted to do in life, because his greatest passion was not to be a mechanic, but to touch the hearts of people with his saxophone. He later tried several competitions to enter a military career as a sergeant musician. All his attempts failed. Leriandre always believed in the one who called him when he was young, but he could never imagine where he would arrive. He began playing in various events in churches, bands, and orchestras, touring with his sax throughout his city, and constantly studying to improve his performance and musical knowledge. With a dream to reach and obey God for having given him direction in his musical life and ministry, Leriandre left the life of a maintenance mechanic because he had no time to devote to his musical career, and went on to fight for his dreams. It was then that, in the year 2000, Leriandre moved to the city of Rio de Janeiro, where many opportunities were open for him. Now working in health insurance sales with a more flexible schedule, he found a large international ministry, the Evangelical Community of Zona Sul Church. He became an integral member of the praise and worship team as a saxophone player, where he stayed for 4 years. He recorded several TV shows, attended numerous invitations to play at other churches, And during this period, Leriandre recorded his first instrumental solo album, Meu Bem Supremo. In this project, he gained a lot of experience in studio production. Meu Bem Supremo sold thousands of copies throughout Brazil. Aside from music, Leriandre had another dream, to study about the oil industry. In 2005, he moved to the city of Macaé in Rio de Janeiro, where he enrolled in a university to study management in the oil and gas industry. Already in his second year at the university, he was given an opportunity to work in his profession on the Petrobras oil rigs. His schedule at work was 15 days on and 15 days off. On all flights to the rigs, he took his great friend the saxophone, and it was part of his 15 working days. On his non-working days, he participated with other musicians on the platform to create a band on the high seas, which included an acoustic guitar, drums, electric guitar, bass, and his saxophone, which was the center of attention at all festivities and evangelical worship services.
Also, in our weekly and end-of-year events, he was able to use his talent. And many lives were won through the work that our brother did there at the P19 platform.
I met Leriandre at a nautical platform where I needed the expertise of a mechanic, and he was very useful at the moment. After that, he invited me to see him play the saxophone, where I became very inspired at seeing him play for us at the platform.
In 2010, he recorded his second instrumental album, Clássicos Inesquecíveis. In his rest periods from the platform, he made several performances at churches, events, TV shows, and several presentations at public squares in many cities in Brazil, and thousands of copies were sold at these events. Having worked on the rigs until 2011, but with the need to enhance his professional life and to learn English, Leriandre decided to go to the United States of America at the invitation of friends from Houston, Texas, to learn about the dependencies of a large company in the oil sector. But before that, he had to realize his dream of visiting New York. There, he had great musical experiences. He made several presentations in the subways. He also played in several American and Brazilian churches and made numerous performances at Times Square in Manhattan. To Leriandre, these were wonderful experiences in the 3 months he lived in New York. Soon after, he moved to Boston, Massachusetts, where he enrolled in a high school to improve his English and participated in several events in Brazilian churches. He had scheduled a trip to go to Houston, Texas, and on that same day, he learned of the death of the great romantic pop diva, Whitney Houston. As he learned of the news through social networks, Leriandre mourned greatly because during all his years in Brazil, the songs of Whitney Houston always inspired him. During that same period, several friends and pastors invited him to perform at churches in Manhattan. That week, Leriandre drove from Boston to New York and stayed with a Brazilian friend. The following Saturday was the funeral for Whitney Houston, and since he was already in New York, Leriandre decided to participate as a mere spectator. The scenario was of sadness, with people crying and devastated by the death of the planet's greatest singer. All of this touched him deeply. It was a heavy feeling of pain for the loss of the greatest romantic singer of all time. Leriandre parked his car far from the crowd and then came walking to the Baptist church where the funeral took place to take part along with other fans. Arriving at a corner, he saw a fan selling t-shirts, photos, and Whitney Houston hats. And with her car open, she played Whitney's greatest hits. That scene also touched Leriandre. So he went to the lady and asked if he could honor the singer with his saxophone. The lady replied, "Please feel free. It will be very important." So Leriandre, listening to the songs that came from the car, started playing along with the greatest hits of Whitney's on his saxophone. That action caused great emotion in the fans that were nearby, and also in the press covering the event outside the church. Suddenly, at the same time, a crowd began singing along with the saxophonist to the great hits of the pop diva. At the same time, the press from all over the world, such as CNN International, Portal Terra, Yahoo News, and an international correspondent for the Brazilian media in the United States, all asked to interview him. And so Leriandre had his first contact with the international press. It was wonderful to play with the fans and to feel the thrill of paying an honor to the greatest singer of all time. For over an hour, they all mourned together to the sounds of Whitney Houston at that place. After that, God led Leriandre to the center of the crowd of the Whitney Houston fans, where all members of the press were also gathered. The people sang Whitney's greatest hits, along with a fan who had a boombox playing her songs. Leriandre then decided to pay his last tribute with his saxophone. Full of inspiration, he played the song from the movie The Bodyguard, "I Will Always Love You," accompanied only by the fans' little boombox. This scene was moving not only the Whitney Houston fans, but also the members of the press that were present. People began to applaud from the windows of nearby buildings, and everyone was in awe of what they were witnessing. A police officer who was blocking the road so that fans couldn't get too close to the church where the funeral was happening couldn't hold his emotions and went to the saxophone player, hugged him, and thanked him for the great tribute he performed in a moment when the world was crying for the loss of its great pop star. Emotional fans from all over and the members of the international press then tried to interview the Brazilian saxophone player, who had become the center of attention. The media's attention shifted to the saxophone player. Leriandre Silva was interviewed by journalists from all over the world. His name was making news in great publications such as the New York Times, the Washington Times, the Washington Post, CNN, and China Daily, among thousands of websites and television networks from all over the planet. God took a musician who played in public squares in Brazil and made him known and recognized all over the world.
His art is very beautiful, and he's a guy who deserves it.
I'm always following the news, so when I was able to see my friend being interviewed by the international media, that was very moving to see. It brought back many memories from childhood, and it made me very happy and proud.
Today I'm very happy. Leriandre is surpassing another phase in his musical career, taking his music to numerous parts of the world.
Because he didn't only become known in our city of Engenheiro Paulo Frontin, or in our state of Rio de Janeiro, or only in Brazil, but he became known throughout the whole world.
Songbook Studio Production.